Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur with you guys. I'm in one of my usual ecstatic/furious moods. Ecstatic in my personal life, furious at the news. I can't believe Michael Caputo still has a job. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Well, I think that your outfit choice today really helps people visualize where you're at mentally, like you're ready to play, right? Yeah. Like that tan colored blazer, it says, hey everyone, I'm here, I'm ready to play. Look at that thing.
I'm gonna go old school on the post game today, and we'll have plenty of great stories for you guys, but I'm also gonna tell you why I'm wearing this jacket, and you will enjoy that story. Okay, it is a fun story. So tyt.com/join to become a member, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit the join button below. Now, the other reason I'm excited, because we actually have a live read about Too Strong Coffee, which I love, right here. Da-da-da-da. Yes, it looks like a coffee bean slash a fist. Oh, that's too strong. Okay, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. So is specialty grade free from pesticides, yeast, and mold? You're gonna find that stuff in there? No way, totally free of it. Ethically sourced from environmentally conscious organic farming throughout the world. For every 2 bags purchased or higher, okay, Too Strong Coffee is gonna donate to partner progressive organizations that include Just Democrats, TYT itself, Wolfpack, and Rebellion Pack. No other brand will ever do that. I mean, hopefully one day a lot of them will do it, but right now there's no way anybody else is gonna give those progressive causes that are so aggressive. So, and by the way, it tastes great. So the reviews are in and they're awesome. So check it out at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Oh, by the way, in that third bag and more, you get the progressive causes plus free mug. Whoa. Okay, all right, enough of that. All right, let's go get mad about the news. Casper, go.
All right, well, let's start off with a little bit of a positive development in the Breonna Taylor case. So, the city of Louisville, Kentucky has agreed to pay the family of Breonna Taylor a record settlement of $12 million after cops fatally shot the 26-year-old in her own apartment in the middle of the night. The cops who showed up were entering with a no-knock warrant. They were plainclothes cops, and her boyfriend did fire a warning shot because he thought that there were intruders busting into his home. Unfortunately, that led to the cops opening fire, and Breonna Taylor was shot and killed. 5 of those bullets hit her and she died in her own hallway. Now, this is based on a civil suit that Breonna Taylor's family filed against Louisville, Kentucky. This is separate from a possible criminal case that is being pursued. There will be a grand jury hearing on that. I'll give you more details in just a minute, but first let me just note that the settlement is the largest ever paid by Louisville police, dwarfing a previous $8.5 million payout to Edwin Chandler in 2012, who was wrongfully imprisoned for more than 9 years after Detective Mark Handy perjured himself. He also coerced Chandler into confessing in that case, and there was actual DNA evidence that helped to exonerate him, and luckily he was freed. But I bring that up because that deserved a large settlement, and he received 8.5 million. In the case of Breonna Taylor, her family has received or will receive 12 million. An amended complaint, by the way, when you look at the lawsuit, about 2 months later, additionally claimed Taylor's death was the result of Louisville police's effort to clear out a block for gentrification. And the newly formed place-based investigations unit consisted of rogue police who violated all levels of policy, protocol, and policing standards. Also, Taylor's family alleged in the suit that the warrant served to Taylor's or at Taylor's apartment was targeted at Jamarcus Glover, a convicted drug dealer that had been located by police at a drug house 10 miles away before the warrant was served on Taylor's residence. A warrant listed Taylor's name and address, but the main narcotics investigation was centered around Glover and co-defendants' alleged trafficking on Elliott Avenue in Louisville's Russell neighborhood. So Cenk, as we know, because we've talked about it several times on the show, there was a lie told to the judge in order to obtain that no-knock warrant. They claimed that the post office officers told the police in their investigation that there were suspicious packages showing up to the address that Breonna Taylor was living in. Later, a postal inspector said that never happened. No one ever said that. So there will be a grand jury hearing to see if there will be any criminal charges against any of the cops involved. Right now, no charges have been filed, and only one of the cops has been fired from his job.
Yeah, so the number is a good number, so that's good news. It's a big number, especially within the context that Anna just explained. But of course, I care more about the systemic change, and so I'm glad that they've at least begun to go in that direction, and that this lawsuit helped to push them in that direction. Because if lawsuits just wind up getting money from one set of people to another set of people, they're not that interesting. But if it turns out they lead to real change and progress, which is what happens a lot, and it seems to have happened in this case, then they're gold, and they're really important for all of society, not just Breonna Taylor's family, which deserves justice, of course. And so I'm thrilled to see that they're going in that direction. Of course, I always want more reform. And one of the things that I continually get frustrated about in this story is we just keep talking about the 3 cops who were there, but how about the person who sent them in? So who within the police department told them to go do a no-knock warrant on this residence after they'd already gotten the suspect 10 miles away? And then guys, the part that's really trippy is the gentrification part. So I'm a little worried that they agreed to this settlement so that they could not talk about that issue. And that's, when you don't adjudicate things and you don't go to court, we're not gonna get to find out more about that. I had to be honest, in the past, it would have been like, really, you're gonna go do no-knock warrants where people can get hurt or killed based on some gentrification plan? It sounds a bit much, right? But here we are with now allegations that some sheriff's office within the LA County have a gang called the Executioners, who the allegations say execute people to get a tattoo and to become part of the gang, execute like citizens. And ICE is apparently doing hysterectomies of immigrant women. That's in the news today. We're gonna talk about it later. So is it possible that they were going to clean out folks from neighborhoods that they wanted to increase the property values of, and so they did target black people? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I wish I did know, and I wish that got pursued more. But God, there are some awful things happening in this country. But Anna's right that at least today is a good day that we get a little bit of justice, and thank God for that.
Yeah, so there's a little bit more to the story that I want to share, including the possible reforms that come along with this settlement. But before I get to that, I do want to respond to something you said about the gentrification. Look, I totally agree with you, and I hope that organizers in the area who are familiar with what's going on the ground in Louisville, pay attention to this and investigate this for themselves, because it's an important issue, right? And I mean, we experience it in so many different parts of the country. In downtown LA, for instance, you'll have developers build luxury condominiums and apartment buildings like right next to Skid Row, and then wealthy people move in and they're like, what's up with all the homeless people here? What are we gonna do about it? Are we gonna kick them out? And it's like, so there is a problem with how some people think of policing in this country. They think of it as a way to just like get rid of the riffraff, right? So that's why I think we have these conflicting perceptions and views of what policing in America really looks like. So when it comes to the reforms, I just want to quickly mention that based on what I've seen so far, not very impressive. They talk about how they want to ensure that someone higher up the chain approves the warrants before the cops go to try to get it approved by a judge. It's kind of miraculous that that's now being brought up. Also, they want to use some funding to hire a team of social workers. I actually think that would be very helpful, especially when it comes to cases of people who might be having some sort of mental health issue. And then finally, they agreed to drug and alcohol test cops involved in shootings. Wow. It's very robust, very robust. It's incredible. I'm being sarcastic in case and people can't tell, but yeah, I would like to see a lot more than that.
Yeah, and look, I know that it's never going to get resolved in this particular case, but the fact that cops have immunity from lawsuits makes it so that just the taxpayers pay the bill. It doesn't even come out of the police department, so they couldn't care less. Honestly, they're like, oh, well, we were, already getting awesome salaries and awesome benefits from the taxpayers, and we like to have fun and beat up people, sometimes illegally shoot them. Oh, you guys are gonna pay the bill, and we're never gonna be criminally liable. That's why there's out of control shootings. Believe me that if the cops were personally liable and they could lose money, they'd be a lot more careful about who they shoot. There's no question about that. And even if you don't want to make the cops personally responsible, oh, it's a tough job. You never know. You don't want them hesitating before shooting. Actually, I do. I really, really do. But you could at least say, hey, you know what? If there's a settlement like this $12 million one, it comes out of the police department. So watch yourself. But they'll never do that. And so that's why a lot of the reforms are piecemeal and mediocre. Things that would actually motivate them, like money, is never touched.
Yeah. Well, we have one other story involving law enforcement, so let's get to that. Over the weekend, something pretty awful happened to two LA sheriff's deputies. They were ambushed and shot as they were parked in a car near a metro station in Linwood, California. Now, the LA County Sheriff, Alex Villanueva, has decided to pin this crime, and by the way, the suspect is still at large, pin this crime on LeBron James, a professional basketball player. So he had an interview with a radio station, and he said that LeBron James should show that he's committed to helping to find the suspect by donating money to the search effort. So right now, there are two private pledges totaling $75,000 in addition to the $100,000 from the county. But Villanueva, the sheriff, is calling on James to kick in $175,000 or even $350,000. And this is what he says. And the reason why this is frustrating is because, again, he's using a Candace Owens ridiculous talking point to place the blame on James, and it's ridiculous. He says, I want to make a challenge to LeBron James. I want you to match that and double that reward because I know you care about law enforcement. You expressed a very interesting statement on race relations and officer-involved shootings and the impact that it has on the African-American community, and I appreciate that. But likewise, we need to appreciate that respect for life goes across professions, races, creeds, and I'd like to see LeBron James step up to the plate and double that. So, Cenk, thoughts on this? I mean, we talked about it when Candace Owens alleged this and it was ridiculous. I don't feel any differently when it comes from the sheriff.
All right, first of all, I think LeBron James also needs to step up to the plate and give $175,000 to TYT.com/go.
We know that he cares about progressive views,
Right. Yeah. As long as we're making random requests of people, why not, right? So now, the fact that it's not random to get serious is actually more troubling because basically he's saying is, oh, LeBron James, I guess you care about black people being shot, huh? Oh, what? Okay, then why don't you put up some money to help police? Well, but wait a minute, you are viewing him in an antagonistic way because he's worried that some cops in the country are shooting unarmed, innocent African-American men. Now you claim when pressed, not just this sheriff, but almost all the police in the country, they claim when they're pressed that those are just some bad apples. So why would you be upset at LeBron James for being against the bad apples? Presumably you're also against the bad apples, right? You don't want them. I mean, most cops are wonderful,
He's
right?
Not. He loves the bad apples. He has rehired bad apples. He has rehired sheriff's deputies who were previously fired from the same department for proven domestic violence. There was one sheriff's deputy who was stalking an ex-girlfriend, showing up to her home in the early morning, threatening her. There was video of it. And Alex Villanueva is like, oh, you guys want to get rid of the bad apples? No. I jump in it, like bring them in. I love them. So Alex Villanueva, out of anyone in law enforcement, has absolutely no leg to stand on when it comes to bad policing. He not only engages in bad policing, I think he transparently and actively flaunts it in everyone's face on a regular basis.
Anna, he's doing bad policing right now. He has no idea who the suspect is. And he's blaming people like LeBron James who are protesting police abuse and killings. But you have no idea that this suspect was motivated by that. Why don't you do your job of policing and catch the guy who shot 2 cops and find out what his real motive is? But you've already made assumptions about his real motives, and you've already made conclusions with no evidence, thereby showing you're a terrible police officer. And now, instead of doing your job, you're going around blaming LeBron James for this. Look, the 2 cops getting shot is a tragedy because they're innocent. They didn't do anything in these regards. They didn't kill George Floyd. They didn't do the shooting in Kenosha. They didn't look. The thing they're so upset about LeBron James for is because he said we're being hunted down. That was in reference to Ahmaud Arbery case. That wasn't even cops who did that case, but they took it personally. So they're like, oh yeah, oh now you're against random vigilantes chasing down black guys who are jogging in the neighborhood and lynching them. Okay, that's it. Then we're gonna take it out on you. Wait, why did you take that personally? Why, were you thinking of doing the same thing? I didn't take it personally. Why did this sheriff take it personally? So those weren't even cops.
He identifies with those people. He identifies with people who hunted down.
He clearly identifies with all the shooters and all, and so just do your goddamn job. The 2 people got shot and they're your officers. Find the guy who did it and bring him to justice. We're all in favor of that. Left wing, right wing, it doesn't matter. Instead of doing stupid press conferences, demanding money from LeBron James because he dares to do something positive in the world. And by the way, the whole point of that, if you didn't get it, is shut up and dribble. He's basically saying the Fox News talking point that Laura Ingraham invented, which is if you're famous and you're gonna get a lot of attention, and put that attention on us when we do something wrong, you better not do it. We're gonna intimidate you. And now, hey, listen, you're against cops in LA, you live in LA. So all of this is implied in what he's saying. And he's taking a hardline right-wing position instead of doing his goddamn job.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. So he actually made those statements during a radio interview, but he also held a press conference where he defended his deputies for their wrongful arrest of a journalist. So let's talk about that for a second. Los Angeles Sheriff's deputies wrongfully arrested a journalist from KPCC. She identified herself clearly as she was covering a very small protest in front of a hospital where there were the 2 deputies who had been shot in an ambush. They were recovering in that hospital. Josie Hong, the reporter, was covering the protest, small protest that was taking place out front, and chaos ensued. The sheriff's deputies apparently didn't like the protest. Tempers were flaring, and before you know it, Josie Hong, a reporter for public radio station KPCC, was taken into custody during Saturday's demonstration outside the hospital. The department said that Hong didn't identify herself as a journalist and interfered with the arrest of a protester. But guess what? The sheriff's deputies were lying because there were multiple videos, some of which were actually filmed by Hong herself, that showed that she identified herself as a reporter from KPCC several times. So you also see how insanely vicious and violent they are with her. There's several deputies on top of her as they're restraining her for no reason. But with that said, keep in mind what the deputies alleged. And here's a video that was taken by someone on the scene. It gives you kind of like a view from a little far away, but we have additional videos to share. So let's take a look at that. So that was the wrongful arrest of a journalist. That was excessive force, there's no question. And the sheriff's deputies absolutely lied about their reasoning in arresting her. And guess what? The LA County Sheriff has decided to defend the deputy's actions, even after all this evidence came out. Villanueva said Hung was too close to the deputies during the man's arrest, because they were arresting another man. I mean, she doesn't seem anywhere near someone else getting arrested. You have all those deputies focusing on her and pinning her to the ground. He claimed that's where she crossed the line from journalism to activism. He said he didn't know if the deputies heard her shouting, "I'm a reporter." But as you guys can see from that video, she's screaming from the top of her lungs to the point where a person filming from far away can pick up that audio. And he also says you have to have a certain level of responsibility as a journalist. Do your job, but do it at a safe distance where you're not interfering with the deputies doing their job. He says more, Cenk, but I wanted you to jump in.
So, first of all, no one makes up something as specific as I'm from KPCC. So they knew she was a reporter. Like it's not like, hey, I'm from the New York Times or CNN. Trust me, big guy, right? No, I'm from a local station, KPCC, I'm a reporter. They know she's not making that up. My guess is they didn't arrest her despite the fact that she was filming. They arrested her because she was filming. And look, we'll see more videos. She don't look close to anyone there. And I have to confess that I believe a portion of their original report as well, the cops report. And that's silly of me, I should know better. They almost always lie in a situation where they can get in trouble. So I thought there was like this big scramble and she was within that scrum and she had the video camera and she's taping because she's doing her job and that's brave of hers, etc. And then when I see the video, there's nobody else around but like 1,000 deputies and her. And so like, no, their initial explanation of the scene, as usual, was a preposterous lie.
A huge lie.
Yeah, and so look, guys, the thing is, the original story here evokes tremendous sympathy for the police, but they don't know how to just stop, right? So the two officers that are shot, everybody's heart goes out to them. Two young people, one of them has a 6-year-old kid and is a mom, etc. And they're bloody and you're all rooting for them and they're at the hospital. And then there's these terrible protesters who got out there and protest. I don't know who the hell they are, but that's a disastrous idea. So you have all the sympathy in the world for the police in this situation, and they go and ruin it by tackling a reporter and then lying about it for no reason because it's just what they do.
And Cenk, you're right about how they knew she was a reporter, and one of the first things they did was snatch her phone and step on it. So in the next video, you can see a sheriff's deputy basically kick her phone. Let's take a quick look at that. And let's take a look at the next video because it gives you a sense of from a more, from a closer angle, what the cops were like when they were arresting her. Yeah, so there was a lot of focus on the phone. She later posted a photo of her phone. It was broken. One of the cops stepped on it, probably hoping that no one else was recording what the incident. And maybe that's why they thought maybe they can get away with lying about what actually happened. But these are people who, look, LA taxpayers spend a lot of money on settlements specifically tied to the sheriff's department. I want to read you some of those stats real quick, and then we got to go. But so of the 606 claims filed against the Los Angeles cops during the 2018 to 2019 fiscal year, 539 were against Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office, the Sheriff's Office, the authoritative arm of several law enforcement agencies, including the Los Angeles Police Department, 241 lawsuits were dismissed without any payments. But now let's get into the numbers. The county budgeted $148.5 million, where $91.5 million was paid to satisfy 16 judgments, including $16.3 million paid for 9 lawsuits against the Sheriff's Department and 240 settlements, according to the annual litigation cost report. That marks a 24% increase over the 73.7 million the county expended on judgments and settlements from the previous fiscal year, the report said. So they're just running wild, and they're basically acting as if they own the streets. They get to decide whether or not they get to carry out justice. They're being brutal with a journalist, several of them. And it's frustrating because you're right, Cenk, something awful happened to 2 deputies. Hopefully they make a speedy recovery. Hopefully they're gonna be okay. And they needlessly jump to conclusions about the suspect and what the motive is. We don't even know who the suspect is. The suspect is still out at large. But they've decided to focus on lying about a journalist that they were brutal with, while also focusing on how LeBron James is somehow miraculously to blame for what happened. It's insane.
Yeah, stepping on the phone was not the bug, it was the feature. So that's seems like the reason why they tackled her and arrested her in the first place. And so, look, guys, the Compton Sheriff's Office, according to other police officers, the allegation is that there is a gang within it called the Executioners, and they get tattoos with a skull and a Nazi helmet after they execute a civilian. So those allegations are so outrageous, I still can't believe them. But it's made by another cop. They settled a case where that issue came up, whether the Executioners actually killed someone. And the county immediately settled for a large settlement. These settlements are out of control. They doesn't come out of the police departments or the sheriff's office budget at all. The cops have immunity. They can't be personally sued. They make us taxpayers pay for all those lawsuits. And so look, this is part of the realization that we're having also with the Trump situation, where you find out, 42% country was always against science, was never in favor of battling racism, and just like believes in this madman, right? And in the case of the police, now we find out, and we're naive. And look, it's true. Minorities were more affected by this, and they've been living with it forever. And it's all of our fault and our shame, honestly, including me, that we didn't recognize the depth of the problem earlier. For God's sake, man, what is going on inside these police departments? Who's signing up to be these cops, et cetera? And so I don't know if that was related to the shooting or not related to the shooting. We have no idea that. The police haven't solved this. But anyway, I bring all that up for one last point, which is, how many stories have we covered now? Dozens, maybe even hundreds, where we found out later that either cops or prosecutors had totally invented evidence to put people away for life, give them the death penalty, full well knowing they didn't do it. And so it's hard to not lose faith in people in positions of authority here. And it doesn't mean that you go and do the violence that we abhor. No, we've got to stick to democratic principles. But if progressives win these elections and their mayors and their executive officers, et cetera, they're the DA, then you've got to take action. And you've got to actually protect the community, and you can't be scared of thugs in office. You just can't. So if you're worried about, oh my God, what is the sheriff gonna say about me? It's cowardice. You have to act politically to bring real change for all of the citizens, not just some of the citizens.
When we come back from the break, we're gonna switch gears a little and talk about how Democrats are quickly backing away from trying to do away with Trump's tax cuts for the rich. This story has me in a tizzy. We'll be back.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, "You must unlearn what you have learned." And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
All right, back on Young Turks. So next Tuesday, we're doing a Get Out the Vote special because it is National Voter Registration Day. So it's 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. Ben Dixon, Ida Rodriguez, John Irola, and myself, get out the vote. We're gonna give you all the facts and hopefully inspire you to vote, which you should do anyway. But it'll be a fun special. Go to the to the Young Turks members comments. Jam says, Cenk in a tan suit. Next thing you know, he's gonna start eating hot dogs with only mustard on it like some commie. So that was actually a hamburger with mustard that Obama had that he criticized them for, along with the tan suit. Cray Cray Souffle says Cenk should be reprimanded by the GOP for wearing a tan jacket. That is what they used to criticize Obama for. Meanwhile, Donald Trump. Okay, Gabby Marita says the word scrum needs to be eliminated from the English language, or at least to describe Tucker Carlson's vacant yet still racist resting facial expression. That's an awesome comment. Nice job, Gabby. Agreed on all fronts. New Young Turks members on YouTube: Alexis Neuwenheis, David Bloom, Sista Soul, Jasmine Marino, Jesse the Vegan Miner. Love you guys. Hit the join button below to become a subscriber. You guys are the best. Those are folks who just became subscribers. Hiroshi Loves You writes in on YouTube super chat. US friends of mine, Florida Democrat voters, are staying with me in Germany. And I had to convince them that Biden is not a pedophile. So I believe now Putin is cute. That's what he wrote. Okay, no, guys, that's the thing, man. That's their Democratic voters in Florida. And they've been convinced through propaganda that Biden's a pedophile. It's insanity. We're living absolutely insane times. Goku Just Cyan writes about how police is devolving into RoboCop 3. I can't read the rest of it, but guys, about jackbooted thugs. But that's the right wing said, hey, watch out for jackbooted thugs. And then when the jackbooted thugs from the government came, they're like, yes, we love it. I mean, that irony is unbelievable. And last thing is from Twitch. Obi Bomb gifted 6 subs, her 635th to the channel, 1,000 bits for Daffy Duck, okay? But I love the 1,000 bits. Thank you for doing that. And Trashy Plays donated 100 bits, saying, "Are you sure that coffee isn't too strong?" There's only one way to find out: toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Casper, go.
All right. So Senate Democrats are already backing away from their commitment, their alleged commitment to undoing the Trump era tax cuts for the wealthy. You know, the tax cuts that'll cost this country $2 trillion. Well, here's what we know from reporting from the Hill. Senate Democrats had suggested to move more quickly on the issue, but now say they're likely to delay standalone tax legislation if Democratic nominee Joe Biden is elected president and their party controls the House and Senate. So they are saying openly, transparently, that if we have complete control, We have Joe Biden as president. We have gained control of the Senate. We continue to have control of the House. We are not gonna undo the Trump era tax cuts. Okay, why? Well, they say instead the priority will be on spending to create jobs and raise wages, investments in green technology and infrastructure, and a national plan to contain the coronavirus pandemic. No, I don't believe them. So why don't I believe them? Because they got a little specific, they got a little granular, and it turns out that they're full of it. Some of those stimulus and relief bills could include tax incentives, meaning more tax cuts for clean energy infrastructure, which sounds good on its face, but I'll explain why we need to be dubious of this, and strengthening the nation's supply chain and domestic manufacturing base, tax relief in the form of child tax credits, meaning more tax cuts, and earned income tax credits for lower and middle income families are also on the table. That last part I'm open to, but oftentimes the tax cuts for lower income households is used for the PR effort for additional tax cuts. But once the policy is passed, it's just disproportionately impacting wealthy people in the best possible way for them. So the reason why I find this whole tax credits for clean energy infrastructure thing a little suspect is because it depends on how it's carried out. Because a lot of the fossil fuel companies, corporations are starting to invest more of their research and their business into clean energy, which is a good thing, right? You want that. But are they looking to get handouts and tax credits from the Democratic Party once they're in charge? Of course they are, because they think ahead. Of course they want to avoid paying taxes as much as humanly possible. Now, tax incentives on actual development, research, ensuring that we have widespread use of renewable energy, I do think that makes sense. But again, it's all about how it gets carried out. This story has me so furious, Cenk, because they're essentially telling us, even if we have all the power that's necessary to get things done in this country, we're not gonna do the bare minimum. We're not even going to reverse the Trump era tax cuts that disproportionately helped the wealthy. And they went on the record by name saying this, and I'll get to their quotes in a second, but I wanna hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I actually wanna do some of their quotes here. But first of all, it's hard not to be furious about this. And there are two main culprits as usual. One is corporate Democrats, they're liars. So let me be clear, apparently I do better journalism than almost anyone in mainstream media right now, because I'm actually willing to call things out for what they actually are. They're liars. They lied to you and told you that they would raise those corporate taxes and taxes on the rich to create enough revenue to help the middle class and the poor in this country, because they're the Democratic Party, they're supposed to be for the working class. And the minute it looks like they're gonna win the election, they're like, oh, just kidding. No way, no way. Those are our donors and our beloved wealthy friends. We're never gonna do that. And the second culprit obviously is the media, because the media won't call them out on it. They'll just note it, okay, oh yes, well now obviously they've changed their position due to changing circumstances. And then when we call out corporate Democrats, they'll go, how dare you? I can't tell the difference between these people and Bernie Sanders, unless Bernie Sanders is running for office, in which case they're like, he's a communist. So no, the media is totally complicit. They should be calling them liars left and right now. Look, I don't need them to say the word liar. I get it, right? They're like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to offend anyone in power. But you can say this is in clear violation of earlier pledges. You could put the word hypocrisy with Democrats in the title. I'm telling you that as a guy who can't stand Republicans, right? But for God's sake, do your job, journalists. And you give some of the quotes, and I'll give some, because I think the quotes are so telling.
They are telling, and I did additional research on this story because I wanted to also make the point that many of the Democrats who went on the record saying that they're not going to pursue a reversal of Trump's tax cuts are very wealthy themselves, right? So let's start with Senator Chris Coons from Delaware. A prominent Biden ally laughed out loud when asked what the Democratic plan for tax reform is next year. Like, he's so smug that he laughed at the question, and he said, look, If Joe Biden is successful in being elected, the next president, let me start that again. Look, if Joe Biden is successful in being elected, the next president, it will be because we're in the middle of 3 crises at the same time: a pandemic, a recession, and a renewed focus on racial inequality. He will have the challenge and the mandate to address some of those. So he's essentially saying, as many of these Senate Democrats have said, look, we just have too many other priorities right now. And so even though we initially promised to reverse the Trump era tax cuts, we're probably not gonna do that. We might get to it later though. There's a lot of that. We might bake it into another bill. I'm sure that'll go over real well. Let's go to Dianne Feinstein. I think we ought to make the decision when we have a better sense of where the economy is going. There's an element of truth to the argument that policymakers shouldn't raise taxes during a recession. Yeah, except let's keep in mind that the Trump era tax cuts disproportionately benefited the wealthiest people in the country. Let's also take into account that during this pandemic, the wealthiest people in this country continued to get wealthier. Here's a quick, fun video from Business Insider explaining just how much.
This is the unemployment rate during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos' net worth during that same time span. From March to June 2020, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos saw his wealth rise by an estimated $48 billion. The founder of the video conferencing platform Zoom grew his nest egg by over $2.5 billion. And former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer's net worth increased by $15.7 billion. These kinds of examples might lead you to think that when billionaires profit during a crisis, it's just a matter of right place, right time. Well, that's not false, but it's not entirely true either. Casino magnate Sheldon Adelson saw his wealth increase by $5 billion. While Elon Musk saw an increase of $17.2 billion. When you add up the numbers, billionaires in the United States have increased their total net worth $637 billion during the COVID-19 pandemic so far.
So Cenk, I mean, this pandemic, we can't. Dianne Feinstein, who herself is worth nearly $60 million and her husband is worth $21 million. I mean, she should know that it's tough times and we can't raise taxes on people like that. I mean, they're really gonna suffer.
No, there's no way her husband's worth 21 million. He's worth way more than that. They're in the hundreds of millions. And guys like Bezos says, oh my God, you can't raise our tax. You know what Biden's original proposal was? To raise the taxes from 37 to 39.6 for the top bracket, okay? 2.6 points. Why would that make a difference to Jeff Bezos? He's like, oh, I can't, it would ruin the economy. You just gave half your money to your wife, who you just got divorced from. It didn't ruin the economy, so why can't you give 2.5%? That makes no sense at all, but the band plays on because there is no real media in this country. And so why is Sheldon Adelson's wealth going up $5 billion when he runs casinos? The casinos are nearly bankrupt. There's nobody going to the casinos. And it makes all we're doing is shoveling all the money to the wealthy. And it's because of the donor class. Look, guys, it's not about being against wealthy people, not at all. It's that they shouldn't be allowed to buy politicians. So, okay, let's go to Richard Blumenthal, another so-called Democrat. And all these guys are the worst. He says, I think a tax bill can be made effective at a time when we think the economy will be sufficiently robust that some increase in taxes will have no detrimental effect. So it has to have no detrimental effect at a later time, maybe. Now, you wanna know what's gonna happen? Oh, got all these priorities, got to work out the priorities. Oh, we're too close to another election. And we've got to protect our majorities. And so we can't raise the taxes now before the election. And that's not going to play well. So golly gee, we didn't get to, oh no, we lost the House to the Republicans. And now we can't ever raise taxes on the rich. So I guess the Trump tax cuts are permanent. Oh, did we do that? I'm so sorry. What a funny coincidence. By the way, Blumenthal, Feinstein, Pelosi, Schumer, you name it. Every one of them is a millionaire. Every one of them is a gazillionaire. And so back to Coons, who just laughed in your face. He's one of the most conservative Democrats there are. And when he said, now those are the priorities, well, we'll get to some of them. Oh my God, so you're not even promising the top 3. So by the way, the taxes used to be in the top 3, that's now gone. They're never gonna do that. You know why he said we'll get to some of them? Because the last thing he said was racial justice. And as soon as that slipped out from his mouth, he's like, oh, yeah, well, he knows they're not gonna do anything about racial justice. They're not gonna do anything about it. So look, one of our members wrote in tyt.com/join to become a member. And basically, oh, here it is, Kat wrote in, Democrats are the new right. They are now the ex-Republicans. Progressives need to disconnect and form the new left. GOP needs to be voted out of existence. No, but that's it. Like the Republicans turned into like literal lunatics. Michael Caputo, Donald Trump, Glenn Beck. They're literal lunatics, right? And the Democratic Party just became the Republicans. And so now that progressives are your only hope. And so I'll tell you right now, if Biden's got to win, because I'm between a corporate hacks like the Democratic leadership is, and a lunatic fascist, I'm gonna have to go with the corporate hacks. But does that mean you go, oh, I love it, yes, can't wait for the paradise that corporate hacks are gonna bring us? No, the minute we get rid of the fascists, will we fight Biden and Feinstein and Pelosi? Yes, day 1, minute 1, second 1. You said you were gonna do tax increases on the rich. You're goddamn liars. You're liars, okay? And so I don't care if no one else in the media does it. I don't care if everybody else in the media taxes, which they will, okay? And because they are the protectors of the elite and the powerful. But we're gonna go after those guys politically, and they're gonna pay a price. If they don't pay a political price, they will rob you blind till the end of time. And guys, for God's sake, focus. Primaries, you primary them, you exercise hard power. You don't beseech, you don't have tea with them, you primary them out of existence.
All right, we gotta take a break. We'll be right back.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Young Turks. Listen, as we fight the rest of the media, we need your help. We need to do it together. TYT.com/go. Without us, if Biden wins, they're just gonna steamroll all of us. So don't let them do that, fight back. TYT.com/go. All right, Anna.
All right. Michael Caputo was an ex-campaign aide for the Trump campaign, and he was a lunatic then. He continues to be a lunatic. Trump loves to hire lunatics, so he actually hired him as a spokesperson at HHS, and apparently the sole purpose of that position has been to help Trump cover up for COVID. We'll get to that in just a second. But he's apologizing today after he went on the type of rant that you would expect a lunatic to go on during a Facebook live stream. The video that aired Sunday, Caputo baselessly accused scientists from the CDC of forming a resistance unit for sedition against President Donald Trump. Here's an actual quote from it. And by the way, the video has been taken down and the page has been made private, so we don't have access to the video. But he did say, you understand that they're going to have to kill me. And unfortunately, I think that's where this is going. I don't like being alone in Washington, he said, describing shadows on the ceiling in my apartment. They're alone. Shadows are so long. He then ran through a series of conspiracy theories, culminating in a prediction that Trump will win re-election, but his Democratic opponent, Joe Biden, will refuse to concede. By the way, this panicked rant seemed to undercut Trump's I don't want anyone to panic lie, right? I mean, they're all about making people panic. They love it. And so Michael Caputo also said, and when Donald Trump refuses to stand down at the inauguration, the shooting will begin. The drills that you've seen are nothing. If you carry guns, buy ammunition, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be hard to get. No, this is insane. This is crazy. So there have been some attempts to kind of do some damage control today. I'll give you the details on that. But Cenk, why don't you comment on Caputo's crazy accusations?
How is this guy not fired already? How is he not fired? He's telling people to start shooting at inauguration. I literally can't think of anything worse. And he admits that he's mentally damaged. And he says, I'm having a lot of mental problems. And the shadows are long on the wall. The guy's clearly lost his mind. And he still has the job of the top communications person at Health and Human Services. We wonder why our coronavirus response has been bungled, why we're the worst in the world in cases and deaths. Because we've taken lunatics like Michael Caputo and put him in charge. He got in trouble in the first place for doctoring the science and not letting those reports out. And then he says this stuff, but even before he was hired, he said the Democrats are gonna try to kill hundreds of thousands of people with coronavirus. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He insulted Chinese people in the most horrifically racist ways. And Trump saw that and hired him because of it, not despite it.
By the way, one of the updates to this story is that he ended up deleting his own Twitter account as well after a late night rant on Sunday and early Monday in which he suggested tear gassing all journalists, comparing one to a feminine hygiene product. So that's who this guy is. And by the way, he has now apologized to his staff, and you're right, Cenk. He says that he's having physical health issues. I mean, he might have physical health issues, but we all know that. No,
in the Facebook Live, he mentioned he had mental health issues. Glenn Beck did, clearly Roseanne Barr does, Trump does, Nugent does. All these guys that the lunatics have literally taken over the asylum, and 42% of the country is going to vote for the lunatics. Unbelievable.
All right, Old School is next.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.